BomberTV and I thought it'd be a perfect time to have another look at some fun to play decks. With coronavirus still continuing to torment our lives, we need a bit of joy and something to cheer us up. I'll go straight to the main point. These decks are not competitive ones, and they're not to be used in ranked if you really want to be climbing up the ladder. They are simply fun to use ones and meme your opponent to death. But when you can pull these decks off, these decks can lead to some of the most fun and satisfying wins you'll ever do. This video looks at 3 of BomberTV's favourite meme decks, and for even more meme decks that are some of my personal favourites, you can click the card in the top right. This is Best Meme Decks Cosmic Creations. This video has been done in collaboration with BomberTV. Please remember to like and subscribe and turn on the bell notifications too. So let's dive in. This is Butterfly Fiora, and as you can see from the image on the screen, it contains a crazy number of spells, 31 in total. This deck contains cards from Targon and Demacia, the 2 main regions which have buffing and protection spell cards, the 3rd region for this probably being Freylord, which is not included. As all the spell cards revolve around buffing your followers and champions, it's basically a mid-range deck. It actually has some fairly average ramp to mid-game in terms of mana. You're going to be doing a fairly normal early game. Outside of the Sparklefly and Fiora, the only other non-spell card is Zoe. Even though this deck is basically a mid-range one, it revolves around a combo to make you win. The idea here is either to get Fiora or Sparklefly on the board, buff them, and then protect them at all costs with all the spells in the deck. Your hand will basically be full of buffs and protection spell cards the whole game, so you're going to have an answer to everything your opponent throws at you. It will be so triggering for them. Make sure you mulligan for the followers or the champions at the start. Some ways to protect them are spells like Bastion, while others can basically apply in combat, like Sharp Sight for example. You'll be using Bastion primarily for the spell sheet, but also grants a nice 1-1 burst to the stats too. Sharp Sight grants 2-2 for the round, and it also bursts speed. It also allows the target to block elusive cards for the round, but that's not really relevant to the theme of the deck unless you really want Fiora to cheekily take out some elusive cards to kind of meet her win condition. As Fiora is one of our 2 ways of winning, we run all the strike cards possible: Single Combat, Concerted Strike, and Judgment. She wins the game when she kills 4 of the opponent's cards. By increasing the number of ways she can strike, you will do this far quicker. Additionally, Judgment casted on Fiora when your opponent has multiple cards on the field, which you can obviously kill through the Judgment effect, is one of the most OP ways of winning in the game, as basically if she kills 4 opponents through this card effect, you've won the game. Very little your opponent can do. These strike cards also work well with a buffed up Sparklefly, giving the deck a nice way to heal and survive as long as possible. This will mean that you can ensure you have the right cards in your hand to cast the winning combos. This is Targon Peak and features cards primarily from Freylord alongside Targon. It's one of the most expensive decks I've ever reviewed on this channel, with a total of 15 epic cards and 6 champions. It also has the highest average cost I've ever reviewed, with 18 cards costing 7 or more mana. The deck features Trundle and Aurelian Soul and revolves around Targon Peak. With the introduction of Targon Peak, while it's not as competitive as many may think, it's definitely the foundation for some pretty funny meme ideas, and probably this deck has one of the funniest among them all. So Targon Peak simply reduces the cost of a random card in each player's hand to 0 this round. The idea of this deck is to ramp into Targon Peak, then have lots of really high cost cards in your deck which you can cheat out. This should almost always work in your favour, since aggro decks are really popular at the moment, and it's like your opponent will only get low cost units reduced to 0 mana. So at the start, make sure you mulligan for everything except Targon Peak. If you already have it, keep it, ramp, and then focus on AoE. Your deck has Avalanche for early game AoE, and Icequake for late game AoE. Additionally, Icequake costs 8 mana, so it has a high chance of its cost being refunded to 0 by Targon Peak, providing absolutely phenomenal value. Your early game is pretty straightforward if you can. Ramp you with your low cost followers. Face of the Old Ones and Riding Stones are perfect here, as they both grant extra mana gems each round. Face of the Old Ones effect activates only if you behold an 8+ mana card, which should not be an issue in this deck with the amount of high cost cards it has. On turn 5, you hopefully have a Targon Peak you can play, and then the real fun begins when you can start spamming high cost units. If you need a bit more stability, Trundle also costs 5 mana and you can play a bit more traditionally to set up the board ready for Targon Peak's use later on. After that, you have to hope your finishers are hit with Targon's Peak so you can cheat them out. Think about a Aurelian Soul on turn 6, or even 5 if you've ramped with some of the mana gem cards. Or how about summoning She Who Wonders on turn 5 when your opponent has only 4 or less power cards in play in their hand? It's just going to wipe them out, make their cards useless. On the spell side of things, Feel the Rush and the Sky's Descent are 2 of the most expensive spells in the game. Imagine casting either of these super early. Feel the Rush with 2 different random champions from your hand with 10/10 stats, or dealing 15 damage to all your opponent's enemies. You're going to have so much fun here. Let me know how this deck goes for you guys. This is Viktor Heimerdinger Go Hard Mill Control. I think that might be the longest deck name I've ever listed on this channel, and consists of cards from Piltover and Zorn, and Shadow Isles. As you can see from the image, it's extremely spell heavy with a total of 30 spells. The only follower is 2 copies of Chief Mechanist Sevi, and 2 champions are Viktor and Heimerdinger. This deck is a BomberTV masterpiece, one of his own creations. In his own words, this is absolutely his favourite deck to play and he wants to share the joy that the deck brings him. Unfortunately, it's not as competitive as he would have liked, but that's what makes meme decks basically what they are. If you want to see a video where he goes into more depth how to use this deck, you can check the video in the description, or click on the card above. The idea of this deck is pretty simple, but complex in execution. Go Hard is the first card I want to discuss. As you know, it drains 1 from a unit, and when you cast it 3 times, you get Pack Your Bags. As Go Hard shuffles into your deck, you're aiming to try and get as many copies of this card as possible. To achieve this, you want to draw a lot and thin out your deck, so afterwards, any Go Hards that are in your deck will increase the density of Go Cards in your deck. You're going to be drawing a lot of them. This deck has a lot of ways you can finish. Firstly, you can mill your opponent with Hexcore Foundry, make them run out of cards to draw, and then win via this alternate win condition. Another way is to overwhelm your opponent with the value of the turrets from Heimerdinger. You have several really expensive spells in this deck so that you can help you summon some absolutely huge turrets to wipe out your opponent. You can one turn kill your opponent with a huge Viktor. This deck has so many different ways of generating created cards, so you'll be able to buff his augment ability quickly. Alongside all the keywords he'll eventually gain through his effect, you will snowball in no time through to his Hexcore upgrade. So it seems almost a bit more traditional Viktor style, but with all the spells you can just make that augment go to the next level. Finally, you can remove and burn everything with basically infinite go cards. Have Chief Mechanist Sevi on the board and you'll get fleeting versions of the Go Hards as well, making it so much easier to meet that free spellcast requirement several times in a game. Whilst aiming for any of these win conditions, you can do this whilst also controlling the board with removals such as Ruination and Vengeance. Ruination destroys every unit on the field and Vengeance instantly kills 1 unit. I'd go more into depth here, but really there is so much going on in this deck it would take too much time. As I said earlier, I recommend checking out BomberTV's video where he goes more into depth in this. Overall, one of his funniest meme decks he's ever created. And there we go guys, what do you think to these meme decks? These are just a few of the meme decks that exist, so we can easily do more versions of this video if you like this style of content. Let's face it, it's so boring seeing the same decks over and over and over again, so this can at least bring some diversity to the decks you play and see in the game. This meme deck analysis has been done by BomberTV, a Masters tier player who does gameplays at Masters tier level, and deck guides just like this one. Link to his YouTube and Twitch channel in the pinned comment or the card above. What is your favourite meme deck? I would love to hear in the comments. This channel makes all sorts of decks videos like starter decks, best meta decks and even top 10 decks. We also occasionally go away from standard decks and look at alternative ones like Singleton and even some meme decks. The videos are all in this analysis format. If you like what you see, you know what to do. I've recently set up an Instagram account, @LawGuides, and I'll be doing a giveaway shortly. Please follow this account for see posts about new videos and will be in a chance of winning this giveaway. Please remember to like and subscribe and turn on bell notifications too. See you next time guys.